What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Observant Lineman. I'm your Observant Lineman, Uche Nwaneri. Now, this is part 2 of that time I got kicked out of Purdue, the story that chronicles my suspension from Purdue University, most unjustly, might I add. And with that, let's start with the beginning of this second part to the story. And where I left off last time was I received a letter from Purdue University stating that I was going to be suspended for the entirety of the fall 2005 semester. And for me, was a huge kick to the gut. Absolutely was devastated to read that, especially after having put my faith in the Dean of Students, who was there to assure me that it wasn't going to be a situation that ended up having me facing these kind of consequences when it was clear, to me at least, that I was defending myself. So what happens after I received this letter? After I received this letter, I was obviously on the phone within moments, calling my parents, letting them know what happened, filling them in on what had happened and what had transpired over the course of the previous few weeks. And, you know, of course, needless to say, my parents were pretty upset about that. They were pretty pissed that I hadn't brought them that information sooner so that they could have prepared for any kind, or they could have been a part of the process, rather to try and kind of show that there was backing behind me to deter the university from maybe taking such a drastic measure as they did. Also, after speaking with my parents, I also went and spoke with Coach Joe Tiller. Rest in peace, Joe Tiller. I got to speak with Coach Tiller. Coach Tiller was visibly disturbed by the news that I'd been suspended by the university, and was not even so much as aware as to he was not aware that they were actually looking at the situation from a university level. So that was something that was very much that was something that was very much problematic for him. A lot of outpouring of support from my coaches. Coach Legg obviously was very upset about it. And, I basically at that point started looking through to see what my options were. My parents thought that we shouldn't, just allow them to, make this decision without putting up a fight. Following talking to my parents, meeting with the coaches, I was then advised by a lawyer that my parents had retained out of West Lafayette to file an appeal, to appeal to the university so that I could get a hearing in front of members of the faculty, administrative members at Purdue, as well as some student representation as well. But I can tell you one thing. When they tell you that they're going to let you appeal the decision, the turnover rate for an appeal, a successful appeal rate at Purdue University, is one of the lowest in the country, 3%. So it was an uphill battle, to say the least. And it was a situation where I was not, by any stretch of the imagination, going to be able to sway these people into allowing me to stay at the university and to stay enrolled. But we went for it. You got to go for it. You can't just lay down, let these people characterize you as one type of thing when you know that that's not the truth. When you give them everything and tell them the honest truth of what happened during a certain situation, you expect that people would see that, recognize it for what it is, and act accordingly. Not come out from the back end and tell me that I battered somebody when I was the one who was physically attacked. So, it was a big thing at Purdue. It was in the papers. It was on the cover of the papers. It was on the cover of the Exponent, which is the Purdue University newspaper. And there was definitely media at the hearing, or outside the building of where the hearing was going to be at. So, that was really my first time dealing with that kind of hoopla. But, I was fine. I went in there, went into the hearing. It was really weird. They say that these are people that are supposed to represent the population and represent the campus itself in the appeal. I go into this appeal chamber, and none of these people know what it's like to be a student athlete. None of these people are student athletes. None of these people seem to have any real knowledge about interactions between football players and how things can turn into altercations in the culture of the sport itself. They have no idea about these things. We have math professors, we have horticulture professors, we have geometry and all these different kind of professors, guys who are just nerds, guys who are, for lack of a better word, just passive, the passive aggressives who have never really had to get their hands dirty in regards to physical contact with other people. They've never been in competitive sports. They've never been in environments where it is you fending for yourself and trying to create something on your own and trying to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. They've never been in any of these kind of situations. You could tell because they couldn't even truly understand the context behind a lot of the things that were going on when the altercation occurred. They asked these questions that were just utterly ridiculous, and what they kept going back to was their own personal feelings. Well, he struck him, so it's battery. Well, why would he have an aggressive attitude towards another student because of a disagreement? Why wasn't there somebody who could break them up? Why didn't they go and find the proper channels to file a complaint? All these things that you're not thinking of in the midst of a situation like this. These are two men. These are two young men, football players on a Division I football team who get into an argument. One person puts their hands on the other one strikes the aggressor to get him off of him. I mean, what's so hard to understand about that? If we're talking about self-defense and we're talking about the letter of the law, then by all intents and purposes, I defended myself and responded to the aggression that was shown towards me with equal aggression and none more. Not a bit more of aggression that was needed to secure my own self. And it was sad to sit there, to hear all these people who were witnesses, who were there in the facility, who all said the same thing, who all told these people that Uche was not the aggressor. They all told these people that Uche only hit him one time, and it was a defensive measure because this guy was lunging and jumping toward Uche. And if you look at these two players' histories on the team, Uche has never been involved in an altercation with another player. But here we have this guy who has been involved on at least 10 occasions in altercations with other players on the team. We even had a young freshman wide receiver who was there early in the summertime to work out with the team who testified being right there and seeing the entire thing, that this guy made a move at Uche, tried to grab Uche, and Uche swung to defend himself. And that was it. And with all of this information placed in front of them, they couldn't get past their own personal bias. They couldn't get past their own personal presumption of what happened to the poor little white boy who got hit in the face because he thought that he could run up on another grown young man and put his hands on him. And to me, that was a travesty. To me, that was a true failure on the part of these people who are put in positions of authority to make a reasonable and logical decision as to what should have been the true outcome when it came to this situation. And when it was all said and done, the student representation that was there as part of the appeal never said a single word. These people were never asked to speak. These people were never asked or were never made to ask any questions to any of the witnesses. It was just these grown professors who think they know it all, who think that they're too smart and too cool for school, who went ahead and laid out their own personal feelings about how they feel us overly aggressive athletes should act in the presence of one another, and that there can never be a situation where my hitting this guy was justified. and I should be punished for it. So with all that being said, they denied my appeal to the suspension, and the suspension was upheld. And it wasn't something that was a total surprise, but at the same time, it does put a pretty sinking feeling into your stomach. And, you know, it just made me really think, because at that point, everything that I had worked for up to that point in my life, and everything that I was looking forward to in the future, and any possibility that I had to make it to the NFL, to, you know, continue my collegiate career as an athlete and as a student, came to a crashing halt. And that's a scary thing for a 20-year-old, 21-year-old who is, you know, hoping that, you know, in a year and a half, 2 years, I'm gonna get a shot to play at the next level. So for me, knowing what I know and knowing how it worked out for other players who had either failed out because of grades or any other situations, you know, these guys always said, oh man, I'll be back in 6 months, this and that, and none of them ever came back. But for me, I was determined, and I wasn't gonna let anything stand in my way. And I told my teammates that I would be back, and I'm sure they had that same look on their face that I had when guys would tell me that they would be back. And I just kind of blew it off as like, oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah, you'll be back. When we see it, we'll believe it. And, you know, it was a pretty sobering experience, being suspended, being away, not even being allowed to use the Corex at the school. Your student ID card doesn't work anymore. But, you know, thankfully for me, I had a family that was there. My parents were there to support me through that situation. After that, even, we had a court injunction that we tried to get against Purdue University, which in the end did not succeed, not because the judge didn't feel that I was right, because the judge actually told me to my face that he actually agrees that this should not be happening to me. I should not be getting suspended because of this situation, but it would be improper for him as a judge to tell the university that their rules are wrong and that they cannot operate by those rules. Thus, he could not pass the injunction for me to be allowed to go back to class. So, but we will find out what happened after that in part 3 of that time that I got kicked out of Purdue. The third part, I think, is going to be the final part in this series, because it actually brings the entire story full circle. Hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the Observant Lineman, Uche Nwaneri. I appreciate you guys very much for checking out part 2 of that time I got kicked out of Purdue. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.